I'm gonna hide chat. Let's do that. Yeah. It's just a fact that you need to learn to live with. And that's about all you can do. Dude, these fucking twins are so disgusting. Okay, let's see this mid-chapter thing. Oh my fucking god, shut the fuck up. The fuck out of here. What's up with all these fucking bots? Okay, I'm gonna record this actually. We can upload this to YouTube. So I'm gonna do this so my face isn't that scene. Okay. Let's see what this mid-chapter is all about. You can start speaking, guys. Oh my god, you're so low.
And today I'm joined by Peanuts. Hi, Peanuts.
Hi.
Bots, yeah, so many bots. It's crazy.
Community manager on Dead by Daylight. There's the first one. It's 11 a.m. on a Monday after a long weekend, so there's going to be a lot of that.
It's going to happen quite often, I think, but that's okay. A little disclaimer before we get started. If you've already read the dev update and you feel like you have a good grasp of the changes and why they're happening, we'll be going over a lot of the same points today, so I don't want to waste your time. But we'll also be going over a lot of the questions we've received since posting the dev update,
let's see it.
so
Why not?
Stick around for that. And before we get into it, it's also a good time to talk a little bit about why we're introducing all those changes.
Can you guys hear them well? Because they're very low for me.
And it's completely normal for a meta to develop, over time. It's expected. It's a good thing. I mean, there's an active, engaged community.
Barely. Yeah, this is. I have both this on max, and I have maxed them out on fucking. God damn, you're so low.
So that's why we're implementing all those changes.
Yeah, speak up, please.
We're going to talk about the.
Everyone's talking about it in the chat, but this is not live.
Right now, as we speak. We also have the anniversary.
They're increasing the volume, I think.
This Thursday, so you still have a couple days to take advantage of that.
I think it's a little louder now. I think they
the content
increased their volumes.
We'll be going over today. First, we're going to talk about the.
I don't know. This is the best I can do.
Then the matchmaking incentives we're introducing.
Unless
changes to the base game mechanics, both on the killer side and the survivor side, as well as the tweaks we're making to
is that better?
Perks. And maybe Peanuts, you can get
Can we hear them better now?
About the current progression system and why we feel the need to change it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So
I put a fucking gain filter on them.
Really quick. So first,
I had to increase their volume through the guy who can throw BS.
In the blood web. And
the best I can make them even louder.
The web of other characters, and then you have the daunting task of going through 28 killers or 31 survivors, I believe. Someone fact check me, and finding those perks again to level them up. So,
behavior, by the way.
That's pretty intense. We crunched some numbers, and the numbers look like this. So you have to play an average of 4.1 hours every single day in order to stay up to date with the new content, and that's a lot. So we're reducing that to about 1 hour every day.
Saboteur.
So for the new system, all you need to do to get the teachable perks on other characters is
by the way,
prestige a
guys,
character.
say
so
hi YouTube, hi
prestige
YouTube.
once, and their
This
tier
go
1
on
perks
YouTube,
will
so
be
you know.
available on
Hi,
all other
YouTube.
characters. If you prestige twice, tier 2 becomes available on all of the characters, and so on and so forth. These perks are immediately available. You do not need to find them in the blood webs. As soon as you prestige, you can use them. I think we have a clip we can show. I'm not sure if we have the right one yet.
Apparently
but
it's an update for DBD.
You can see that
Coming out now.
as soon as you prestige, the perk should be available. Anyway, so if you prestige Dwight, for example, let's say you hit prestige 1 on Dwight, you immediately have leader, prove thyself, and bond. It's been a while since I prestiged Dwight. It's immediately available on all of the characters, so it'll be on your Meg, it'll be on your Kate or Adam or whoever else.
Why are the white parts
And I
of
think
the
that's it
insert
for
so shiny?
unlocking perks. And now we can maybe go over, you know, the one of the main pain
this is how
points of
blood works,
the
you know.
previous
Oh, this looks
system,
actually pretty sick.
which was, you know, the need to reset every time you prestige a character. And since prestiging is not optional anymore, since it's, you know, an essential part of progressing, we decided to remove the need to reset.
This is what I hate, and I want it not to happen. You see how he prestiges and then his blood whip goes back to a level 1 blood whip? There's no reason to do that. Why do I have to start getting 1 perk per blood whip for the next 40 levels? Because I prestige. I don't want that. I want to be getting perks.
Past those first 3 levels that give you perk tiers on all relevant characters, and up to level 100 where prestige is currently capped. So I know we're also introducing a couple rewards. Maybe you can, you know, talk a bit more about that, Peanuts.
I would prefer to stay level 50 without prestiging.
What would more prestige
be able
be
to
without
get
more
perks?
rewards? So since prestige 1, 2, 3 now reward
you don't lose
teachable
them now, so
perks
just
rather
let me
than
get perks. Give me level 50 blood whips forever.
We decided to move
There's
the
no
bloody
reason to do
cosmetics
that.
up to prestige 4, 5, and 6. And this will give you some sort of reason to keep going if you've already done everything. It also kind of keeps the bloody cosmetics as like a bonus reward for people who go above and beyond. For prestiges 7, 8, and 9, you will get each of the characters' unique perks as charms, and you can use these on any other character you want. I believe the killer ones are only on killer, and survivor only on survivor.
This is actually sick. So you can have your build 3 of your perks as charms. So I can have like autodidact and adrenaline and
so
stuff.
If you're really dedicated to a certain character, now you can show your love for that character to everybody. People who prestiged before this new system comes out will get a special prestige icon that nobody else will have, except for the many other people who prestiged before.
Yeah. And you also get bragging rights, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, another way you would be able to unlock perks before with the current system was through the Shrine of Secrets. If you're familiar with it, every week you can, you know, buy teachable perks.
Shrine of Secrets is actually so much more useful now.
And then you can find those perks, you know, in your character's blood webs. But you would still have to find that tier 1 of that perk, tier 2, tier 3, and unlock it individually on each character.
No, really not. And you know what's the saddest part? They said that they're going to be doing this prestige update, and then they have double blood points a week before Dredge comes out. Dredge comes out, a week later we have the event with Flans, and then we have 5 days of double blood points again. I got 4 characters to prestige 3 during that.
You know,
4 characters.
Which is a David King perk. Now, tier 1 of that perk will be available on all relevant characters. So Jane Romero, for example, will have tier 1 of that perk. You can just head into a game with that perk. You don't have to find it in her block web. If you want to get tier 2 or tier 3 of that perk, you can either buy it a second and third time from the Shrine of Secrets, or you can just, you know, find it in her block web. I know we had a couple questions about that, you know, what happens to perks I've already bought, for example, and that's pretty simple. As we transition into the new system, we wanted to make sure you didn't feel like you were losing anything. So any perks you've already bought from the Shrine of Secret will now, you'll now have tier 1 of that perk on all relevant characters. The other question is, can I buy a perk from, you know, the same shrine multiple times to get to tier 2 and tier 3? And the answer is yes, you can. There's no limit there. The only thing you can't do is buy that perk infinitely once it's already maxed out, just to get blood points.
Okay, that's pretty sick.
But
so if there's a perk you want on the Shrine of Secrets,
how we're transitioning in.
Yeah, if there's a perk that you like on the Shrine of Secrets, you can just buy it 3 times and you have it tier 3 on everyone. That's sick, actually.
Implement those changes.
For sure. So you've already covered the teachable perks, but when we're transitioning to the new system, we wanted to make sure that everyone's treated fairly. Some of you have spent hundreds of hours or even thousands of hours. I don't think we're quite at the millions yet. But we wanted to make sure that nobody loses anything. So you won't lose. They
said about the Shrine of Secrets that you can unlock perks as you can now, but now as soon as you buy them, they're going to be tier 1 on everyone. And you can also buy those perks again and again on the same shrine, that you can buy the same perk 3 times to have it maxed out on every character. So that's sick.
Depending on how many perk tiers you have unlocked. So if you stay at level 50 and you just maxed out all your perks, you're not going to be left way behind. We're going to give you some prestige levels to catch you up. in addition to all this, since this will be on the PTB this week,
Yes.
we are giving you a lot of BP on the BP on PTB.
BP on the PTB, yes.
It's tricky. So you can test this out for yourself. Just as a note for anyone wondering, PTB progress does not carry over to live. It's
They're gonna give
just
us
for
free
PTB,
blood wins on the
so nothing you do there
PTB.
matters. It's all made up.
Yes. It's very much like Vegas. Whatever happens on the PTB build
Not
stays
funny.
on
What?
the
It's
PTB.
hilarious, dude. BP on the
and I think
PTB,
that covers it
yo.
up for the
Sick.
changes to the progression system,
I
right?
believe so.
At least they're
So
gonna have
maybe
some
we
blood ones
can
on the
dive
PTB.
into
We
the
can see
matchmaking
the,
incentives. Those
you know,
are
it
pretty
measures
self-explanatory,
prestige
but in case you
number.
haven't read the dev update, we'll still, talk a little bit about those. You may have
Well,
noticed that
my
recently
viewers
we've
have read the
focused-
dev
we've
update
been
because
focusing
I
on,
made a video about
improving
it.
our matchmaking system, both in terms
Gotta make it even
of
watch the
quality
video
of
now.
matches and
Now.
wait
Now.
time. And we've noticed that there's one factor we have very little control over, and that's the distribution of people playing each role, survivor and
Let me
killer.
actually-
And that's completely normal, especially it's
Let me go see
expected
if I have my
in
gun.
a game like Dead by Daylight, where it's an asymmetrical game. But we know that it affects the matchmaking when the ratio 4-to-1 for survivors to one killer deviates too much one way or the other. It affects the matchmaking system's ability to create those quality matches. So we're introducing matchmaking incentives. Those take the form of blood point bonuses ranging from 25% to 100% that will show up next to a role's play button. So for example, if we currently have a high demand for killers, you'll see that matchmaking incentive next to the killer play button.
My gun
On the
is
other
not
hand,
here,
if we have a
boys.
high demand for survivors,
So
you'll
sad.
see that matchmaking incentive next to the survivor play button. And you can also deduce from that, which role currently has the longest queue time.
Matchmaking incentives
A good thing
has
to
been a
note
long
is
time
that
coming.
those incentives are entirely unique to you, your region, your rank, the time of the day. So it's completely normal if
Yeah.
you don't
It's been
have
a
the same
long
matchmaking
time
incentives
coming.
as your
I
friends.
can't believe it took
The
it 6
other thing
years
to note
implement
is
something
that
like this.
if you play with crossplay off, you won't see those matchmaking incentives because it's very likely that it wouldn't really affect matchmaking. So if you want to test these, you would have to play with crossplay on.
Okay, that's very cool.
And I think that's it for matchmaking incentives. Those again are pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any questions about those, you can also read the dev update as well, that we'll link in the chat a little bit later on if there's any confusion there.
In the meantime, we can get into some general killer improvements. The first of our big balance changes in this patch.
Yes.
This
So
is actually so sick.
the reason why we're changing the killer-based game mechanics is because we've noticed that on the killer side, there's been an over-reliance on slowdown perks. Those are
buffing
corrupt
killer.
intervention,
Let's
pop goes to
fucking
Weasel,
go.
Hex Ruin, perks that slow down the generator progress
would no
one
longer be
way or
sad.
the other.
Just
And this
losing
tells
from
us
the
a lot in
beginning
terms of how the
match.
pace of the trial is perceived on the killer side. There's a lot of players who feel like generators are powered too quickly, so we wanted to make sure we addressed that concern. So we're
As a Dead by
introducing a
Daylight
couple
player, I
changes.
like that.
First,
Dude,
now
you-
generators
spawn in
will
as
take
killer?
90 seconds to be powered instead of the previous 80 seconds.
you spawn as killer, and the moment you spawn in, you're already losing. You're fighting a losing battle, but you just have to fight your way out of the loss into the win, unless you're playing nurse and blight. But
On top of that, we're reducing the time it takes to break walls, pallets, and to kick generators by 10%. This seems, rather small in theory, but in practice, it can, make the
Yeah.
difference
They
between
made it
hitting
10
or
take 10%
missing
longer,
a survivor.
or
And
10
finally,
seconds
we're
longer.
reducing the
And then
basic
they
attack
also
cooldown by
made
10%, and
breaking
we're
pallets,
also
walls, and
on the
gens
survivor side
10%
reducing the speed boost duration after
That's
getting hit
sick.
by
And
10%
they
as
also-
well.
yeah, they
This is to
removed
make sure that
the
it's
speed
not
duration
too
as well.
easy for survivors to run long distances or escape a
So
chase
sick.
right after getting hit, because we do want to reward killers for getting that hit in the first place.
I'm so excited.
And I know we had a concern about one of those changes, which is, the decreased basic attack cooldown, because some people were wondering, now that we decrease the basic attack cooldown, is it impossible to hook trade, which is a pretty common strategy when you want to prevent a survivor from reaching stage 2 on a hook, or dying early on in the game if the killer is around the hook. Maybe you can answer that.
Yeah, so hook trading, for anyone who may not know, is when you run out of hook, you're probably going to go down and get hooked yourself, but you want to get that other person off the hook. So the question is, can the killer now hit you so fast that you can't get that unhook before you go down? And the answer to that is no. It's slightly faster. You're still probably going to die, but he won't be able to interrupt you and stop you from getting that unhook.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So
they basically
no
give us
constants there. You're still
2
able to
free,
hook trade.
Save the best for last stacks.
And maybe now we can get into
So now
the
save best for
last
last
change,
stack-
which
save
is
best
a
for last
change
stack,
to
it goes up to
Bloodlust. And I know this may have been surprising
stacks,
to
basically.
some players.
That's it.
If you're not familiar with it, Bloodlust is a mechanic that
Just
is
delete
triggered during
Bloodlust,
pollen
man. Just
chases
delete
to
it. Just get it
increase
out
the
of the
killer
game.
speed
We don't
based
need
on the
Bloodlust.
duration of the
Bloodlust
chase.
is just bad for the game.
At this time,
Bloodlust is
in
just
most
bad for the game.
chases,
There's no reason
Bloodlust
for
doesn't even,
Bloodlust to exist.
activate, and when it does, it's sometimes too late for it to matter. So we're adjusting, Bloodlust tiers to activate after 15, 25, and 35 seconds instead of the previous 15, 30, and 45 seconds.
No, don't
And
do
I know
that.
some
Delete
people were
Bloodlust.
wondering, since Bloodlust may not be working as intended, why are we adjusting it, tweaking it rather than removing it from the game altogether?
Yeah, so for anyone who's been with us for a while, you might remember that a while back we did a test where we turned Bloodlust off for a weekend. Now the results of that were pretty indistinguishable from any other weekend, except for in lower skill games. Their Bloodlust started to kick in a little bit more and started to become more
because
impactful.
they're bad. What can you do? Just
However,
fix the maps
main
and
feedback
you're
that
gonna
we did
not
get from
need
that was that
Bloodlust.
there are still some scenarios where it's useful or needed. Let's
only
say
need
you have
the
the
only
shack
reason
and then
Bloodlust
you have a
is
strong tile
needed.
next to the shack. If you're chasing a good survivor there, it can be very hard to catch them.
Fix the maps.
But we found that
What?
when it was needed, that it didn't quite
Yeah,
kick
if
in
it's
as
shack
soon
and
as
there's
it
like a
needed to.
fucking
So
OP
even if
structure
you
next
did
to it,
eventually
you need Bloodlust.
build up your
Fix
Bloodlust
the
and then
map
catch them,
generation.
you'd be so far behind in that game that you still pretty much lost either way.
don't get the
so
logic.
that said, we don't really want Bloodlust 1 to become any more common. It doesn't happen much as is. But Bloodlust 2 and 3 will kick in a little bit sooner. So if you do happen to need it, then it will hopefully kick in a little sooner, and you won't have to, throw the entire match to catch that one guy.
Exactly. So that's it.
If
for
you're throwing the entire
changes
match to
to,
catch that one guy, you
Bloodlust.
deserve to lose.
Yeah, and we also know that it's
Why?
like a very contentious
That's it,
one.
yes.
We've seen a lot of feedback for that.
It doesn't
We're
make
paying close
sense.
attention. We're
You don't even
going to
understand
keep
how the
a
game
very
works.
close eye on that on the PTB, and also if it goes live, because sometimes things go from PTB to live before we
Yes.
can change them. Then we're going to keep a close eye on it there as well. So do not worry.
Do not worry. I think that's the main message here.
Fix the map generation.
Now maybe we can jump into
Balance
the
loops.
changes to the base game mechanics on
you
the
don't need
survivor
Bloodlust.
side. And the same
that
way as we did
simple.
for the killer side, we noticed there's an over-reliance on some perks, namely second chance perks like Broad Time,
obviously don't play the game.
Decisive
It's pretty
Strike. These
obvious.
are perks that essentially
Even
either
if they do
give
play
survivors
it,
are
they're like fucking
third
rank
health state, or
19
help them avoid situations
Wraith that doesn't
created
cloak.
by
Just goes around with his
controversial
little shtick
strategies
just
like
running.
camping and tunneling.
I'ma
But
get
maybe you
ya.
can address
I'ma get
those.
you.
Yeah, for sure. So nobody likes dying super early into a match when there's nothing you can do about it because you're just stuck on the hook and the killer's sitting there. So previously, perks like Borrow Time and Decisive Strike have become very popular because they help you prevent that situation. But they should be nice to have. They shouldn't be essential. You shouldn't have to run these perks just to avoid having an unfun match. So with that said, we are taking part of Borrow Time's effects and putting it in the base kit. So when you unhook a survivor,
This
they
is
will
really
get
good,
5
actually.
seconds
This is
of
really good.
endurance and 5 seconds of
Those are great
haste.
changes.
So they'll move a little bit
Good job,
faster for a while.
The perk
And this
changes
is
are
to
great.
give you an
The one
opportunity
perk-
to
the
escape
one
the
change
killer
I
after
didn't
being
like was
unhooked.
Bloodlust.
Basically,
And also, why are
it's
you
not going to make
nerfing-
you invulnerable,
Why are you
but it'll
nerfing
stop you
Spine
from just
Chill?
immediately hitting the ground and then getting hit and then dying.
Why are you nerfing Spine
Yeah.
Chill?
I think
of
that's
all
it
perks?
for those. There were some questions about that because before a perk like Borrowed Time used to give you 8 seconds of endurance, and some players are wondering how are those 5 seconds of endurance supposed to compete with a perk like this one. But I think the short answer is it's not supposed to.
Yeah, not quite. So there are still perks that will affect this. We'll get into that later. But this is meant to basically mainly give you a small chance. Sorry, it's 11 a.m. on a Monday after a long weekend.
Yes.
So it's meant to give you a small chance to get to a nearby pallet, get to a window, have a survivor get in position to take a protection hit. It's not meant to necessarily make you untouchable. That said, this is going to a PTB.
And Peanuts,
We're going to be seeing how
you
this
need a
plays out,
beard.
and then we can always fine tune things and
need a
adjust
beard,
things later
man.
on.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that message is not,
and
not
to
doing any favors.
reflect the changes to those base game mechanics, we're also tweaking 39 perks, which we're going to get into right
this is
now.
not a video, this is a fucking
And we divided those perks
mess,
into
but
two categories.
better than
The first ones are meta perks. Those are perks that usually find themselves in a majority of builds that most people tend to take in game, while non-meta perks are perks that maybe serve similar purposes but are not picked as often. So our objective by tweaking those perks is to widen your options while still offering you good alternatives that fit your playstyle. And maybe we can start with the killer meta perks. The first one being rather popular because of the block points it used to give you. It's barbecue.
Yeah, so this is the one that's going to end my career here. I got to be the guy that delivers the bad news to you.
Yeah.
So barbecue is incredibly popular because it basically doubles your blood points from a mash. However, because it's so good at giving you more blood points, there's very little reason to take it off and experiment with other perks, especially information perks. Why would you use another one when this one not only gives you information, but also doubles your blood points? So unfortunately, it's a necessary step that we have to take. We need to remove the blood points from barbecue. And I know that I'm probably going to be, hated for that, but I have to deliver that news. However, I just want to say that this update also reduces the grind by about 75%. So we want to make sure that these updates come out together because that's the only way this would be acceptable. We didn't want to make the grind longer.
That's it. Yeah,
basically.
No. That would not be fun. And also, with the changes to the progression system and the new matchmaking incentives we're introducing, this shouldn't be felt too, strongly either in game. The next one is one of the slowdown perks we mentioned earlier. It's Hex Ruin.
Yeah, so Hex Ruin basically allows you to regress generators automatically as soon as the survivor gets off of them. It also lets you regress them from a distance. If you can somehow, scare a survivor off the generator, maybe force them to go for an unhook, it'll just regress without you having to do anything. And this is very unique, and we don't really want to change that. So the way we're reducing Ruin's power level is by reducing the regression speed. So it was previously 200% speed. Now it's going to be down to 100% speed. In addition to that, if a survivor dies, Ruin will automatically disable.
Like that.
The next one is another rather popular slowdown perk. It's Pop Goes the Weasel.
Yeah, so Pop Goes the Weasel allows you to remove a huge amount of progress from a generator just by hooking a survivor and then kicking it. And that's really nice, but it can be a little bit strong.
Yeah.
Why are you talking to her?
That's why it's in the meta.
She knows it.
So
You're talking
to reduce
us.
that, we're reducing that to
Yes, there you
20%, and it's also going to be based on the generator's current progress, not the total. So let's say the generator's at 50%, and you kick it,
Why are you
it's
talking
going
to
to
her?
take off about 10% of the total
You're
progress.
supposed to be streaming to us. Not
Yeah,
her.
I think there was a little bit of confusion about this one because some players were wondering now that it takes 90 charges to power a generator, and with the 2.5 regression, after kicking a generator being added, doesn't that make Pop Goes the Weasel stronger than before?
I believe I haven't checked the numbers. I think at the very, very end, if you're at like 99.9, it might be slightly stronger.
That's it. Yeah,
But
I
you
think
really got to be right at the end.
you would
What's
have to be right at the end.
20%? Okay.
Otherwise, I believe, for example,
Google.
if you're 50% done
What's 20%
with a gen,
90
it will
seconds?
take maybe 10 charges off of that gen instead of the previous 20.
It's 18
So,
seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's 99.9, what are you doing? Commit to that generator. Don't run away. Don't let the killer kick it.
yes.
What's wrong with you?
Plus 20% of
Stay on the
80
generator. The next one is another slowdown perk. This one you mostly used at the beginning of the game. It's Corrupted Intervention. I believe we have a clip for this one.
Yeah. So corrupt intervention basically blocks the 3 furthest generators at the start of the match for, I believe it's 2 minutes at tier 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's
It's
a lot of perks in the
technically
game.
2
I can't remember
seconds
every number.
stronger if you kick a gen
And this forces
at
survivors to go
99.
deeper into the map and look for a generator
other
that they
than
can
that
work
is
on. And it helps the
probably
killer
a
patrol
little
those generators,
weaker.
find people, build some early game pressure. We don't want to change that. We feel like that's interesting. However, we do want to add a soft cap to how powerful it could be. So if a survivor's downed, corrupt intervention will now deactivate. I think we had a question about this one as well. What happens if the killer doesn't down anybody? The timer's still there. The timer hasn't gone anywhere. Sometimes we exclude small details like that in the dev updates just for length because it's crazy long as is. That's why we're doing a whole stream to recap it.
Updating DVD by itself and
So yeah, no, the timer's still there. It won't block 3 gens forever because you didn't down somebody. It's still gonna go away.
This is a good change. I don't know what you're talking about. This is a good change.
And the
honestly.
next perk is Tinker.
Yeah, so Tinker,
This is a
obviously very
change.
strong because it gives you crucial information on generators that are almost finished.
There's no
and
reason
it
for
allows
3
you to
gens
go
to
over
be
there
blocked
and prevent them
after
from
you have
being
gotten it down.
completed because you
You've
can't
already gotten
uncomplete
your early game
a completed
pressure.
generator. But it is a little bit overbearing sometimes compared with other slowdown perks. Say if you have Ruin or if you had Pop Goes the Weasel, even Scorcher Pain Resonance to some extent, even though you don't have full control over that. It can make it go off multiple times in a single match, and it can be a little bit overbearing.
This is
so to
also
prevent
very
that, it's now only going to activate once per generator.
As it should. As it should.
And I believe right after we have one of the, I would say, most popular perk in the game, which is NOED, Hex, No One Escapes Death.
Yeah, so depending on where you are, NOED is incredibly popular, mostly in the lower to mid skill matches, I believe.
So tomorrow,
and it's
gonna be
incredibly
watching the
powerful
Nintendo
for
Direct
making a
and
comeback late in the game.
playing Galaxy.
It allows you to quickly down a survivor and put a little bit more pressure on them. However, it also makes you want to cleanse totems.
Yes.
People want to cleanse totems so that Noah doesn't go off. Maybe not Michaela. She probably doesn't want you to cleanse the totems.
Yeah, I know.
But we don't really want to change that aspect of it. We do want people to still feel like they should preemptively cleanse to prevent NOED. I think that's the healthy way for the game to go. However, we do want to give you a little bit of help
nerf for NOED.
if the killer downs somebody and puts them on the hook at the end of the match and NOED is up. Because right now, there's not a whole lot of reason to go back and try to make that save.
Yeah.
If NOED's up, you get hit, now you're on the hook, and now the killer has 2 kills instead of 1. So, to help combat that, when NOED is active, there will be a 4-meter aura around the totem, and it will grow to 24 meters over the course of 30 seconds. So this will hopefully make it
I think they just found out how to make like aura expand slowly. So they just implemented like 3 different perks immediately. NOED, and there's like one that I don't
Who's
remember
on the
what
hook
it is.
after the,
And I think another.
gates
I
already
think
been
they
powered. You
just found
probably
out
are
how to
excited
make
someone's coming back for you.
Aura reading
hopefully,
just
fingers
expand.
crossed. I can't
Yes.
guarantee that.
Just
I think we also had a
let's use it
question
on
about
everything.
Yes,
what
we had
happens.
a question for this one. What happens, if you run NOED like, with a perk like Undying?
Yeah. So basically, only the real NOED totem will show its aura. Undying will not. However, if you cleanse this totem, it transfers to the Undying totem, just like any other Hex perk. And the range on the aura reading does not reset.
And finally, the last one of the killer meta perks, we have Scorcher Pain Resonance.
Yeah, this is also pretty
Yeah,
good change.
so Pain Resonance is pretty strong
too
because you
fucking
just hook a survivor on a Scourge hook, and the most progressed generator will automatically just explode and cause them to scream. So it gives you both a very powerful regression effect, but also a lot of information. So to kind of make it less of a jack of all trades, we're going to make it so survivors no longer
Okay,
scream
Tio.
when
I
the
wish it was,
generator
man.
regresses. So it'll spark now
See
and
ya.
lose some progress, but you won't scream.
And I think since now the generator sparks and doesn't explode anymore, some players were wondering, are survivors still first of the gen?
They are not.
They are not.
So if you want to run this with, I believe it's Dead Man Switch, a lot of perks in the game, I can't remember the names anymore, then it won't combo as nicely as it
I
did
can't
before.
remember the names of the perks.
And I think we're done with the killer meta
Thank
perks.
God.
Now we can jump
Pain
into
Res
the
doesn't
survivor
work with
meta perks.
Switch
And the
anymore.
first one is one of the second chance perk we were talking about earlier. It's Dead Hard.
Yeah, so Dead Hard is incredibly strong. I think the usage rate alone speaks for that. In the right hands, it basically acts as a third health state. It allows you to avoid going down when you otherwise would have. So naturally, it's incredibly popular. And worse yet, when you use it for distance, if you dead hard, you can get to a window or a pallet before the killer
that
can hit
how
you.
Dead Hard looks now?
There's not a whole lot
With
a
the
killer can do
animation,
about that.
running
Maybe
in a
certain killers with
straight
certain
line.
powers can, but most can't. So to help combat
That's
that,
fun.
Dead Hard will no longer give you a dash. When you use Dead Hard, you'll become invincible. You'll get endurance,
Endurance, yes.
for 1 second.
This
And
looks
if you
so
get hit during
dumb.
this time, you'll get a speed boost and you'll go zooming off.
This looks so
One
dumb.
thing that we have seen asked a lot is, does Dead Hard have an animation still? Do you know, so you know when you baited it out? And the answer is yes. Yes, it does. You will see the survivor do a little dab, and then either you hit them or you don't.
Or you don't.
And then
That's
you'll know.
This looks terrible. Please change that.
And the next perk is another one of those, second chance perk. It's Decisive
so
Strike.
bad.
Yeah, so DS is mostly healthy for the game. It encourages kills
They
not to
just do
tunnel,
the
and we don't
fucking
really
dead
want to
animation while
change
going
that.
normal speed, so it just
It's
looks like a
pretty easy to
bug.
avoid as is. If
just
you
looks
unhook
bad.
a survivor, or not if you unhook a survivor, if a
guys
survivor gets
thinking?
unhooked, you just know not to chase them.
Yeah.
So we don't really want to touch that. However, there is
Favorite
a
makes me
situation where
feel
at the end of the game,
make me
there's
feel
not much you can do
pain
if a survivor has
inside
DS.
my
They get unhooked, and you just have to watch them run to the gate and run out.
Yeah, no, that's not fun.
Yeah, so we're going to get rid of that. Once the gates are powered, DS will no longer activate. I believe we also made a change to the description. So it now uses conspicuous actions, which is just a shorter, fancier way to say all the things that used to deactivate Decisive Strike.
Yes.
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
So
Yeah, 11 a.m. on a Monday after a long weekend. We get it.
So a conspicuous
I'm saying
action
it.
will now cancel Decisive Strike preemptively.
Okay, so you change the description to conspicuous
no
action,
more,
but you now have to explain
running out the
what a
gate again.
conspicuous
No,
action
no,
is.
no more of
so
that.
what's the point?
The next one is also rather popular as a second chance perk, especially
drinking on the
to
weekend,
counter campaign tunneling, and that's borrowed time.
Or start drinking on Monday. I don't
So
know.
forward time is,
I know what we
like
need.
DS, run a lot out of necessity
stop
because
drinking or
people
drink
don't want to be
more.
camped.
Yeah.
And this is a great way to counter camping. It allows you to unhook someone and they can run away and get away, take a hit before they go down again. But since this is partially in the base kit now, we do need to update borrow time accordingly. So now it's going to extend the endurance effects and the haste effects rather than granting it.
Yeah.
So basically just it gives you a larger window to get to a pallet or a window or take a hit or however else you want to avoid going down.
And now that we've seen borrowed time, the next one is Iron Will.
Yeah, so I think this one's been a little contentious so far.
Yes, it has.
It's very useful for hiding and especially while injured. Not really well not injured because that doesn't change anything. To kind of reduce this a little bit, it's now going to reduce your grunts of pain by 75%, and
So it's
it'll no
useless.
longer work while exhausted. It doesn't cause exhaustion itself, but it won't work while you're exhausted.
I'm sorry, but it's kind of useless now. 'Cause
And the last two are
Point of
also
Iron Will is to hide
very
without
popular.
being
We
hurt.
have first self-care.
even that 25%,
Yeah, so
you can still hit
self-care,
it. with
this one is surprising to some people because I know it has a bit of a reputation amongst some circles about, from being
just
weak.
Fucking raise my phone to the max.
I think we've all
ears,
had
but I
that
can still
teammate
hear
who
the
self-cares in the corner of the
Yes.
map when they should be saving you.
I have been that teammate, I have to
Meg.
say. I'll admit it.
Yeah. It's surprisingly strong in the right hands. People who know when to use it and when to not use it can get a lot of value out of it. On top of that, it also grants medkit efficiency, and medkits are pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, very
so
fucking busted.
having
Have you
extra
seen a
charges
green
on your
medkit?
medkit allows you to get more heals out of it, so it's kind
you
of
seen a
strong
green
at both
medkit?
letting you heal yourself
Just
and
heal in a
also
fucking
extending life
second.
of your medkits. So to tone this back, we're reducing the self-heal speed to 35%, and then we're also removing the medkit efficiency modifier on there. So it'll no longer make your medkits any more efficient.
And
But
the
they're
last
buffing
one, which
Botany
also we
Knowledge.
already received some feedback for, and that's Spine Chill.
Yeah.
Please
so
don't
Spine Chill,
change
we've got a lot
Spine
of
Chill.
feedback on this one so far.
Do
I
not.
think in particular, we've seen a lot of people say that they use this as an accessibility option. Now, obviously, we don't really necessarily want this to be the be-all, end-all accessibility option.
No.
But for people who have a hard time hearing the tear radius, this could be a great way to let them know that the killer's coming. So originally we said we were going to change this to be based on line of sight. That's no longer the case. It will still be that way in the PTB. We haven't got time to make that change just yet.
It's coming up very soon.
But we will be changing this so it's based on the tear radius instead. And that way, if anybody is using this to, replace the tear radius so they can tell that the killer's coming, it'll still work
So
basically
if
the
you're
same way.
inside the killer's tail radius, the spine
In
chill
addition to
is-
that, though, we also made it so the effects linger after the perk turns off, I guess.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes the killer would look your way and then look away, and then you see the HUD flickering constantly. And that's not very pretty, and it's not very good because you don't really get value out of the speed boosts. So it's going to stay on for a very short time, and that will just stop it from flickering, and it'll also give you better value out of the bonuses. And then on top of that, we removed the vault speed from Spine Chill because it didn't suit the nature of the perk.
Yep. And I think that's it for Survivor and Meta Perks. Actually, that's it for all our Meta Perks.
We talked about a lot of nerfs.
Yes.
But we also wanted to buff a lot of perks as well to give people new options. So why don't you tell us about the killer non-meta perks that are getting buffed?
Exactly. The first one we have is Overcharge. We actually have a clip for this one, and this one is it's a perk that after killer kicks a generator, the next survivor attempting to repair it will be faced with a difficult skill check. Upon failing that skill check, it removes a good amount of progress from the generator. We're also adding another effect to that perk. Now the kick generator's regression speed will grow from 100% to 400% over the course of 30 seconds. So it really incentivizes survivors to get back on that gen as quickly as possible to stop the regression and create those interactions between survivor and killer.
Poor Dwight there. He's just staring.
By the way, fun fact. 400% regression is the exact same speed as normal progression. The killer, the gen normally regresses at 1/4 the speed of a survivor.
It does. Just a note, when you're adding these effects, you gotta remove the base 100% regression speed from those perks descriptions before you add the bonuses together. So in total, Call of Brine with Overcharge can make it regress up to 500% speed. Yes, 500.
So that's it for Overcharge. Then we have Coulrophobia. This one we also had a clip for. So this one, it's a perk that slows down the survivor's healing speed when they're healing in the killer's terror radius by 20, 25, by 30, 40, and 50%. But it now also increases the speed of skill checks by 50%. And what we mean by that is that the skill check needle speed will increase by 50%, making it harder to hit a skill check and not the rate of skill check themselves. The next one we have is Dark Devotion. So this one, whenever the killer hit their obsession, their terror radius was transferred to the obsession for 20, 25, or 30 seconds, and it made the killer undetectable for that time. Before, it used to have a basic attack condition. To be fair to killers who rely a lot on their powers, we're removing that basic attack condition so you can get a bit more value out of it, and the perk will now activate whenever the obsession loses a health state, regardless of how that happens.
And we have Jolt.
Yeah, Jolt. So Jolt, this one, when you put a survivor in the dying state with a basic attack, all generators within 32 meters explode and start regressing. It also applies an 8% progression penalty. This perk used to have a cooldown that lasted 60, 50, or 40 seconds. We're removing the cooldown to make it a little bit stronger. However, unlike Dark Devotion, there is still a basic attack condition for that perk.
Yeah, if you step on a bear trap, you're technically.
And then Lethal Pursuer, I think, is next.
So
yes, Lethal Pursuer. So this one, it's a perk that allows you to see the auras of all survivors at the beginning of a match for 7, 8, or 9 seconds. We're adding a new effect to this one. It also extends the duration of all aura readings effects by 2 seconds, so it's a bit easier to keep track of survivors during a match.
I think I've also seen some people ask if these work with add-ons, and the answer is yes, they do. It's not just perks.
And the last one we're going to talk about on the killer side is going to be Scorcher Monster Shrine, and this one it's a little bit different. It's getting more of a rework. Yep. We actually have a clip for this one, I believe. All basement hooks now become Scorch Hook, and they will now grant 10, 15, or 20% faster into progression, but only if the killer is not within 24 meters. So it really incentivizes the killer to walk away from the basement, walk away from that hook. So there's also an interesting dynamic being introduced there.
Yeah, and this might sound minor, but it can make the difference between hitting second stage and just dying. You can see on screen here, the survivor with Monster Shrine is already dead, and the other one is still struggling, plenty of time to save them. It's pretty noticeable.
That's 13 seconds
and I think so. Okay. That's it for the killer non-meta perks we're going to go over today, but there's also, I believe, a couple more that we're tweaking.
Yeah, so we're running a little short on time, so we still have a couple more that we want to cover, but if you want to know more, you should check out the dev update. I believe we'll have a link in chat. But they are Eruption, Knockout, Gift of Pain, and Thanatophobia. They're all getting some sort of change, mostly number tweaks or buffs, sometimes a slightly new effect. But yeah, I encourage you to go check that dev update.
Check those out. Now we can dive into the Survivor non-meta perks we're tweaking. The first one, I believe we have a clip for, it's Saboteur.
Yeah, so Saboteur, nice and simply, now when you pick up, or when Survivor's picked up, you will see the auras of Scourge hooks, and they'll be highlighted in yellow. So we have a little clip here, showcasing that as the Survivor looks around.
Yeah.
If you want to prevent a Scourge hook perk from activating, you can go sabotage that hook, or maybe take some hits and help the person wiggle off.
Yeah, exactly. That's it for Saboteur. Then next we have Botany Knowledge.
Yeah, so Botany Knowledge right now increases your healing speed and medkit efficiency by 33%. We're buffing that to 50%, but we're also removing the medkit efficiency. So you'll get way faster heals, but not with the or not as much use out of your medkits.
Yes, that's it.
That's okay.
Then the next one is Off the
Still
Record.
too fast.
Okay, so this one's been a bit contentious so far. I've seen a lot of feedback on this one. Basically, when you are unhooked, you will get 80 seconds of endurance in addition to the current effects. Now, it's worth noting that this will disable if you do a conspicuous action. So if you work on a generator, if you cleanse a totem, you try to open an exit gate, these will all cancel the effect prematurely. So you're not untouchable. If you want to progress the game, you will be able to go down again. I think we've seen some effects or some comments about why isn't this or why isn't that a conspicuous action. Generally speaking, conspicuous actions are things that would progress the game or improve your chances of survival, other than just being chased. So the idea here is when you get unhooked, if the killer decides to chase you again, it'll help you out. But if you decide to go do a generator, cleanse a totem, do something else, then you're putting yourself back into the game and saying, hey, it's fair game if you attack me. We can't expect the killer to just avoid you and ignore you working on that generator. So as to why it doesn't work if you hop in a locker, or why it doesn't disable if you hop in a locker, the answer is because sometimes there's a reason to hop in a locker. You might have head on, you might have deception, you might have a death wish, and you just hop in the locker so they can grab you. There's all sorts of reasons you might use a locker in a chase.
Yeah, and also I know, like you said, there's a lot of concerns about the cooldown. Sorry, not the cooldown, the endurance effect being rather long. But like you mentioned, those conspicuous actions make it so it has the potential of being that long, but it's very likely that in a match it's going to end a lot earlier.
Yeah, and we'll still be watching this on the PTB to see if it needs any changes. So no worries there.
And so the next perk is a perk that you can now actually get a bit more value out of, and that's Lucky Break.
Yeah, so Lucky Break when
whatever, you can recharge it. Dude, you nerf Decisive Strike to not work in the end game, or after the gates are powered, and then you make Off the Record give you endurance for 80 seconds. So you get unhooked and you just run to the door. And for the next 80 seconds, the killer cannot get you. In 80 seconds, you can do a circle of the map twice. Okay.
And that's because Pharmacy now grants you a green medkit every single time you search a chest while you're injured. This can be used multiple times in a match. So if you use it at the start and then you get hit later on and you need to search another chest, you can do that, and it will also have a green medkit for you.
And next we have Soul Survivor.
Yeah, really quick, I just want to say to the survivors who steal my medkits after I search it with Pharmacy, I'm not coming back for you. But yeah, Soul Survivor, in addition to the current effects, so right now it hides your aura when you're the last survivor. In addition to that, it's now also going to give you a 75% faster gen repair speed.
Why?
And a 50% faster gate opening speed. So really, if you're the last survivor, it's going to help you get out at the last second.
Why repair speed?
And then we had Distortion.
Why?
Yeah, so this one's also rechargeable, like Lucky Break, but you also instead you get tokens from standing within the tear radius for 30 seconds. So if you want to hide your aura, you better successfully evade the killer.
Yeah. And then we have Lightweight, for which we also have a clip in this one. I was actually pretty excited about, because you're going to see very clearly how it differs now.
Yeah, so in this clip where we have the killer probably doing the worst job chasing a survivor I've ever seen, they keep stopping. You can see that like the scratch marks are very inconsistent, and that's because it's lightweight. In addition to having buff numbers,
There's just
will
no
also
scratch
now
marks.
sometimes not spawn scratch marks. This might
Sometimes
sound
just
a little
don't
minor,
spawn
but if you're in
scratch
an
marks.
area with a lot of line of sight blockers, tall walls, maybe you're on an indoor map, then rounding a sharp corner could make you lose track of them for a second. So that's what's happening with lightweight.
Okay.
Next, we have
Lightweight
Dark
might actually
Sense,
be one
another
of
perk
the
that you can now
best
get a bit more value out of.
to evade the killer.
So Dark Sense is getting a bit of a rework here. Right now, when you power a generator, you see the killer's aura, but that's not always the most useful. In fact, most of the time, I think it's probably not the most useful. If you're working on a generator safely, they're probably on the other side of the map chasing a survivor, so you don't really need to know where they are. So now, when you power a generator, Dark Sense is going to activate, and the next time they come within 24 meters of you, it'll go off and show you their aura. So basically, this will give you information that's more important to you and actually helps you avoid them, rather than just telling you like, hey, that guy's across the map and not concerned with you right now.
But as long as we
That's
can
it
make
for
the
Dark
rest of the
Sense.
perks
The last one we're going to talk
good
about
enough,
today is We're
go
Gonna Live
against
Forever,
the
which is
best of
pretty
the
much
perks.
getting a similar treatment to barbecue.
Yeah, so same thing as barbecue. We're removing the blood point bonus on this. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we want you to use the perks that you want to use.
And
we don't
also,
want you to feel
this
like
is
you need to
fucking
use a
bullshit.
perk just because it has blood points. So it's unfortunate, but it is a necessary step. In addition to that, though, we're adding a new effect to We're Gonna Live Forever. So when you do something that would previously give you a stack, so like taking a protection hit or saving a survivor, you will now activate the secondary effect of the perk. And when this is active, the next
So,
survivor you pick up from the
they
dying
remove
state
the blood
will
points
get
from
the
both
endurance
We're Gonna
effect
Live Forever
for a
and
short amount of
barbecue.
time. And then the secondary
But they
effect
also
disables.
buffed
Yeah.
We're Gonna Live Forever as a compensation.
That's it for the survivor
whereas they did
non-meta
nothing
perks
to
we're going to be
barbecue.
covering, but a couple of other perks
Why?
are also getting tweaked. That includes Deja Vu, No One Left Behind, Tenacity, and Hope. But those are getting smaller tweaks, so we're not going to address them today, but they're going to be in the dev update. And I know we had one question that was asked, we could have answered earlier, but it's, if Decisive Strike is deactivated during the end game to make it fair to killers, will off the record be deactivated as well? And I think while it's not at this point in time, the conspicuous actions make it so. There's a similar dynamic there.
Yeah, and please give us feedback on the PTB once you've had a chance to try it. Let us know what you think. If it is too much, we can always revisit it. One thing about this is that we're not necessarily waiting until the next mid-chapter to make changes to any of these perks if they
20
need
seconds more than the size.
Anything that needs like a
and
simple number
works in
tweak,
any-
we can squeeze in
You
sooner,
get
and
saved
we're going to try to
off a
squeeze them in
hook
as soon as we
during
can.
the end of the match. And you
But
have 80
things that need like
seconds
a
of
larger rework
protection.
might take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Why?
And I think that's a wrap for all
You
the
just
changes we're
nerfed
introducing.
Decisive. You just made
I think it's
Decisive
also good to
2.0.
mention that we're trying to make those updates a bit more common
Like,
in the
what the
future.
fuck is this killer
We
supposed
really
to
want
do?
ideally have
In the end
another
game?
one of those when the new
Survivor
meta
gets
is
saved off the
established to make
hook.
sure we can keep the meta
They can
fresh.
wait the
It
5
never,
seconds.
goes,
That would be
stale.
normal, base skip borrowed time.
And I think it's also a
You
good
could
time
wait
maybe
the
to thank
15
team
seconds of
who
the
worked
new
on this.
borrowed
I think
time.
this is something that has been
But the
discussed
80
for
seconds?
a long time, and there's so much work that went into this, both in terms of the actual changes in game, but also communicating about all of this. So thank you to the whole team who worked on these changes. I think that's it for the changes themselves. We have a couple more announcements. To repeat what we said at the beginning of the stream, we have a hotfix going live today. The anniversary event is ending this Thursday. And we also have the PTB going live this week, actually on Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah.
And as a reminder, you are going to get blood point in the PTB build to try all the new, changes we're introducing to the game. But as always, whatever happens in the PTB stays in the PTB, so that this won't get transferred to the game afterward. And I think maybe now is a good time to ask you: are you more excited about any of those changes?
I'm really excited about the meta changes.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've seen like a shake up in the meta.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see some new perks. I'm personally waiting for the head-on meta. That's what I dream of.
That's a good point. I think for me, it's definitely more the non-meta perks that are getting tweaked a little bit. I think a perk like Dark Sense that I used to experiment a lot with before, I feel like now I can get a lot more value out of it. So definitely excited for those. And I think
I
that's
think he has
it
just
for
turned off the
all of our
light.
announcements. It's good to mention that
Maybe he's not
if
plugged
some
into
things
the
are still a
power.
little bit confusing, if you still have
But I think he
questions,
just has turned off this
we're going to
and
link the debit date in the
lights
chat
back
so you can read that as well if you haven't already.
his laptop
This
is
stream
off.
will be
I
available
doubt
to
he's gonna like
rewatch if
this
you,
on his laptop while his
missed the
laptop
first
is
part,
off.
if there's anything that's still unclear.
If that's the case, that's fucking
Also,
hilarious.
if you still have questions, keep an eye out on our socials. We're going to be maybe, having some prompts there for any remaining questions, or if anything is still confusing. And hopefully answering them as we, head into the PT.
They both have papers with updates for some
any
fucking reason instead of
last
having
words?
Yeah, I'm gonna go chug a lot more coffee because it is too early.
It is 11 a.m. on a Monday after a long weekend.
If you have anything more to
Peanuts.
add, but yeah,
Peanuts
that's it.
literally is
So
like this.
I think that's it for the stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, if you have any more questions, we'll be able to answer them afterward. Keep an eye on our socials, and have a beautiful Monday, hopefully full of coffee.
Bye.
Bye.